Hi there. Today we're talking about atheism again. I did a video yesterday and I was going to put it in the library actually, but we put it out and there's been a couple of comments. Now, a couple of them refer to Jesus. Obviously, we all know who Jesus is in the Christian tradition. He's the Messiah and he's covered off mainly in the New Testament, in the Gospels. And there's some sort of references to him in the Old Testament. But the Bible itself is the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now, I find both the Old Testament and New Testament interesting from historical point of view. As I mentioned, we do use, in the mining industry and in science, we do use ancient texts like the Bible because there is truth value in them. That's just reality. And every year that goes by, there's more scientific and historical proof for ancient texts that come to the surface, whether it be, as I mentioned yesterday, the Beowulf, the Saxon saga, which may have its gold hoard in the Staffordshire hoard that was found. But also, with the Old Testament, we're now pretty sure we know where Sodom and Gomorrah was. King Solomon, the wise, the creator of the first temple in the first state of Israel, he did that there was such a thing as King Solomon's mines. They weren't necessarily in Africa, they were in Timnah. They were copper mines. We've dug up material, not me personally, but archaeologists have, and they may even have found some of King Solomon's clothes there. So look, this has been well gone over. There's plenty of truth value in the Bible. Historical, scientific, beyond question. Now, in relation to Jesus, certainly Jesus, apart from the accounts in the New Testament, there isn't other historical information apart from those bits of documentary evidence. And that's without question. I certainly wouldn't assert there was more until more was found. But in terms especially of the history and, in my case, mining, we're interested in the Old Testament, right? Because mining got Israel going. The copper mines of Timnah and the cut that King Solomon got helped build the first temple. Right? We can actually see where different parts of the Bible are because the descriptions are accurate in relation to, as I say, Sodom and Gomorrah. And that's just reality. There's no point in sort of saying that there's zero truth value in the Bible because that's not true. We can actually show the scientific and historical fact of it. Now, if you're an atheist, you should simply say, I don't believe, full stop, right? Because you're an atheist. You don't have to believe. There's no need to get into an argument. If you don't believe, you don't believe. Full stop. But the fact that you don't believe is your business. It doesn't mean that someone who's actually in business shouldn't refer to ancient texts to help them, whether it be with mining or any other historical or scientific endeavor. And that's what mining is, looking at geological history. So, just because there's bits in the Bible are provable facts, that doesn't mean that God itself is proven by the fact that there are provable facts in the Bible. It simply means that when you say there's zero truth value in the Bible, that's not correct, right? Because there are provable facts there, especially in the Old Testament. And also, just as a lawyer, as a word of advice to atheists, if you immediately talk about Jesus or the Immaculate Conception in terms of saying, well, I don't believe in those things, well, you're immediately going for safe ground, easy ground, and that means that it looks like you don't have better cards to play. So if you say, well, I don't believe in the resurrection, or Jesus, or the Immaculate Conception, well, that's pretty hackneyed. You're up against the wall if you're doing that. And if you're arguing along those lines, people say, well, fair enough. A lot of people, believers or non-believers, question the resurrection and the Immaculate Conception and whatever else. But as I say, if you question the Immaculate Conception, the virgin birth of Jesus, you're going to come up against the argument of the virgin birth of the universe. So you're immediately sort of destroying your ability to argue. You're giving the game away. If you're an atheist, just say, I don't believe, right? It's perfectly fine. You don't believe, that's fine. As soon as you get into the argument, you start losing. You start explaining, you start losing. And for instance, in the law of torts, we have a very simple rule. Res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself, right? So if you're an atheist, simply say, res ipsa loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. I can't see God, therefore he doesn't exist. But as in res ipsa loquitur in the law, if you start arguing and start arguing this little bit here and this little bit there, then you can't claim res ipsa loquitur, because either the thing speaks for itself, as atheists claim, or if you start speaking for it, you lose. So look, there you go. Old Testament. Even Richard Dawkins says you should be mindful of the Christian scriptures. Get reading.